just in case. The door opened with a hiss, releasing cold air and a strange sweet smell. His eyes widened. Inside were rows of strange pods, 12 in total, lined up neatly. Each pod was glowing softly, and inside each one was a girl, alien girls, sleeping. Their bodies looked almost human, but their skin colors were different: pale, silver, soft purple, icy blue. Their ears were long and thin, like delicate fins. Their hair floated inside the cryo-fluid like silk yark. Froze, he had never seen anything like this. These were not ordinary beings, not from any known species. He reached for his cum, but stopped. Who could he call? The law. They'd take the container, arrest him maybe? Pirates, slavers. Worse, he looked again. One of the pods was blinking red. The girl inside moved, her eyes opened slowly. Glowing gold, she looked straight at him, then gasped as if waking from a nightmare. Yarek stepped forward carefully. "Hey, it's okay, you're safe," he said. Though he wasn't sure if it was true, she sat up inside the pod, trembling. Her hands touched the glass. Then she spoke, her voice soft and broken. "Where am I? Who are you?" Jarek activated the pod's unlock command. The fluid drained, the glass opened, and the girl fell forward into his arms. She was light, ice-cold, and weak. "I'm Yarek," he said. "You were inside this container. I found you." She looked around wildly, eyes landing on the other pods. "No, no, no," she whispered. "You opened it, you woke me. I had no idea what was inside," Yarek replied. "I only paid 1 credit." Her eyes widened. "They sold it? The container?" "No, they don't know. They don't understand what's inside." Yarek helped her sit on the floor. He wrapped her in a blanket. Noticing now that her body was covered in strange marks, like glowing tattoos. "I need answers," he said gently. "Who are you? What are these pods? Why were you locked up?" She shook her head. "I don't remember everything. Just flashes, war, fire, screaming, betrayal. We were taken, frozen, hidden. I don't know for how long." Yarek's mind was racing. If someone had hidden these beings, there must be a reason. Maybe they were dangerous. Maybe someone wanted them dead. Or maybe they were important. The girl looked at him again, her eyes filled with fear. "You can't let the others wake. Not yet. One at a time, or it will break the seal." She said, "What seal?" he asked. She looked at the back of the container, where a second locked chamber waited in the shadows. "The one that holds the monster," she whispered. "The one that feeds." And just like that, Yarek realized this wasn't just a lucky find. It was a ticking bomb, and he had just activated it. Yarek didn't sleep that night. How could he? The alien girl Sorelli. That's what she finally said her name was. Lay, wrapped in blankets, asleep in the corner of the ship. Her skin shimmered faintly under the low lights. Her breathing was soft but strange, sometimes stopping for a few seconds before starting again. Yarek sat near the control panel, watching her and the 12 pods still inside the container. Each pod glowed blue, peaceful, silent, except the one Sorali had come from, which was now dark and empty. His hand hovered over the scanner again. He wanted answers, but didn't know where to start. Sorali had told him only one thing before she passed out: don't wake the others yet. But what if they started waking on their own? As if answering his thought, another red light began to blink. "No, no, not again," Yarek muttered. He rushed to the pod, but it was already too late. The fluid inside started bubbling. The pod hissed, and the girl inside opened her eyes. They were not like Sorali's. These eyes were sharp, glowing red like fire. The second girl sat up quickly, gasping for air. Her hair was dark as space, and her body tense, like she was ready to fight. Sorelli stirred awake. "Niza?" she whispered in fear. The girl in the pod heard her name and looked toward the sound. Her voice was fierce and full of anger. "You," she said to Sorali. "You woke first." "I didn't mean to," Sorali said softly. I was just the one whose pod failed." Yarek tried to speak. "Hey, let's not fight. I'm Yarek." I helped. Nisa was on her feet before he could finish, standing tall, sharp, her eyes locked onto his. "You're human," she said coldly. "Where are the guards? Where is the prison?" "This isn't a prison anymore," Sorali said. "He found the container. He bought it from a junk dealer." Nisa looked around, confused, then stepped out of the pod and scanned the room with sharp eyes. Her movements were fast, graceful. "Dangerous? We were locked up," Nisa said slowly. "For a reason. If the seal is broken, something else wakes too." Yarek asked, "What seal?" "You both keep talking about something inside the container. What is it?" Sorali looked at him with worry. "We don't know exactly, but it's bad. It was trapped with us, so it couldn't escape." Nisa walked to the container's back wall, placed her hand on it, and closed her eyes. A strange glow formed around her fingers. The metal shifted, like it was responding to her touch. "It's still sleeping," Nisa said. "For now." Suddenly, warning lights flashed across Yarek's panel. An old beacon from the container had activated, broadcasting their location. "Why is it sending signals?" Yarek asked in panic. "I didn't press anything." Sorali stood up shakily. "They'll come now. Whoever buried us or whoever wants us gone. This beacon was made to alert them if we ever woke. Can you stop it?" Yarek asked. Nisa nodded, her hand glowing again as she slammed her palm into the metal panel. Sparks flew, and the lights turned off, but it was too late. Yarek's long-range scanner blinked and known ship signatures were moving toward their location. "Fast pirates," he whispered. "Or worse, we need to leave," Nisa said firmly. "Now." Yarek rushed to the cockpit, fingers flying across controls. The dust sparrow roared to life, lifting off the rocky moon and shooting into the stars. The girl stood behind him, silent, watching the stars streak by. Nisa finally asked, "Why didn't you sell us? Or kill us?" "You had every reason." Yarek shrugged. "Didn't feel right. You looked alive, not junk." Sorali smiled faintly, but Nisa didn't. Her voice was low. "Most humans would not be so kind." "Then maybe I'm not like most," Yarek replied. Nisa studied him for a moment, then sat beside Sorali, still suspicious. Still cold, but a little less hostile. Outside the ship, far behind them, a dark figure moved through space. Something old, something hungry. It had heard the beacon too, and it was no longer sleeping. The dust sparrow floated through deep space, silent and alone. Yarek sat in the cockpit, eyes locked on the radar. No ships behind them for now. He had 2 alien girls on board, both awake, both different. Sorali was quiet, gentle, unsure of herself. Nisa was sharp, full of fire, and always watching him. But they had one thing in common. They had no idea how long they had been asleep or who had locked them away. Yarek paced the narrow hallway, trying to understand what he had walked into. He had paid 1 credit for a container. Now he was running from pirates, carrying 2 powerful beings, and possibly something worse hiding in the back of the container. He walked into the cargo bay again. The pods still glowed, 10 of them still untouched, sleeping, peaceful. Sorali joined him, her steps slow, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim lights. "You're thinking about the past," she said. "I'm trying to," Yarek answered. "But I don't have any of it. You do. At least some." She sat on a crate, touching the edge of her empty pod. "I remember war," she whispered. "Not one planet, not one system, but many. Fire in the stars, voices crying, 'My people.'" "We were called the Valari." Yarek leaned in. "I've never heard that name before." "You wouldn't," she said softly. They erased us. After we were defeated, they wiped our name from history. We became ghosts. Who are they? Yarrick asked. I don't know, Sorelli said. They had metal skin, glowing eyes. They called us a threat to the galaxy. They said we were too dangerous to live, so they froze us, locked us away, disappeared. Nisa stepped into the bay. Arms crossed, she's being too kind. Sorelli frowned. Nisa, no, Nisa snapped. We weren't just locked away. We were hunted, betrayed by our own allies, sold out to machines, and when they couldn't destroy us, they locked us in a metal tomb. Yarrick looked between them. But why? What did your people do? Nisa's eyes narrowed. We were born different. Each of us had a gift. Some could bend light. Some could move objects with thought. Some could. Here across the stars, the galaxy feared us, Sorelli added quietly. But not all Valari were soldiers. Some of us were healers, artists, dreamers. We weren't all dangerous, Yarrick asked. Then why put you all in the same prison? Nisa's voice was hard because they didn't care to see the difference. Sorelli pointed toward the far end of the container, where the sealed chamber waited in silence. There's more, she said. The seal is not just to trap us. It was also made to trap something else. Yarrick's heart sank. You mean that monster you mentioned? Nisa nodded slowly. A creature we couldn't defeat. Not with all our power. We had to imprison it with us. Use our own life energy to keep it asleep. But why would they put you in the same container? Yarrick asked, confused. Because they were afraid it might escape, Sorelli explained. They used us as a lock. Our sleep was its prison. Yarrick took a deep breath. So if you all wake up, the prison gets weaker, Nisa said, and if all 12 of us are awake, it may break free. Just then, a beep sounded from Yarrick's console. He rushed to the front, pulled up the displays. One was trying to trace them. A message popped up, encrypted, but broken enough to read, Dust Sparrow, surrender your cargo. You carry stolen weapons of ancient war. This is your only warning. Yarrick's face went pale. They're calling you weapons. Nisa laughed bitterly. Of course they are. He turned to Sorelli. Is that what you are? Weapons. Sorelli shook her head. No, but we were used like weapons, just like you'd use a tool. Some of us fought in the war to protect our kind. Others never touched battle, but in the end, they didn't care. They saw power and called it danger. Yarrick walked back to the container, staring at the pods, at the girls inside so still. So peaceful, he whispered. How many of you are like Nisa fighters? Sorelli hesitated. Maybe 4, maybe 5. The others? They're different. Some are even afraid of their own powers. The lights flickered, and the ship gave a sudden shake. Something moved inside the sealed chamber at the back. Not loud. Not violent, just a soft, wet dragging sound like something shifting in its sleep. Nisa turned sharply, her voice tense. It's waking. Yarrick stared at the door, cold sweat on his neck. Whatever was in there had heard them, and it was waiting. Asterisk, the ship shook again. Just a small tremble, but enough to remind them they were not alone. Yarrick stared at the sealed chamber at the end of the container. The noise was gone now, but he couldn't forget it. That soft, dragging sound. Like something big and wet moving across metal. Sorelli stood close behind him, her voice quiet. We need to be careful. The seal is old, and now it's weakening. Nisa was already near the pods, checking them one by one. She wasn't gentle. Tapping the glass with her glowing fingers, Yarrick asked, What are you doing? Nisa didn't look up. I'm checking who might wake next. Some of them are stronger than others. If we're going to survive, we'll need them. But the more of you that wake up, the weaker the seal gets, right? Eric reminded her. Nisa glanced at the sealed chamber. Then we better be ready when it breaks. Suddenly, one of the pods flickered. Not red, not blue, but violet. A strange new color. The girl inside began to move slowly. This wasn't like before. There was no alarm, no loud hiss. Just a slow, rising motion, like she was floating from a dream she didn't want to leave. Sorali gasped. "That's Orlan?" Yarrick asked. "Is she dangerous?" Sorali didn't answer right away. Her face was pale, her voice dropped. "She's not like us." The pod opened, the fluid drained quietly. And the girl stepped out on her own. No stumble, no weakness. Her skin was almost white, with faint patterns across it, like stars. Her eyes didn't glow like Sorali's, or burn like Nisa's. Her eyes shimmered like mirrors. Orlan said nothing. She looked at each of them in silence. Then lifted her hand. Yarrick stepped back, expecting an attack, but instead, the ship around them shifted, just slightly. The floor curved. The air bent, and Yarrick felt his breath catch in his throat like space itself was folding around him. Then, just as quickly, it stopped. Oraline lowered her hand and finally spoke. Her voice was soft and calm. "Where are we?" Sorelli walked up to her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You're safe, for now. This is a human ship. The man's name is Yarrick." Oraline looked at Yarrick, but said nothing. Instead, she walked toward the sealed chamber, like she already knew it was there. Yarrick called out. "Wait, don't go near that thing." Orlan turned her head slowly. "I can hear it dreaming," she said. "It's not awake." Yet Nisa growled. "If it wakes, we're dead. We need to get ready to run or kill it." "No," Orlan said without turning around. "If we run, it will follow. If we fight, it will learn." Yarrick frowned. "What does that mean?" Orlan finally looked at him again. "That thing in the chamber, it's not a beast or a machine. It's a memory, a broken idea given shape. It grows stronger the more you think about it. And it learns every time it's attacked." Sorali looked horrified. "I remember now. That's why we couldn't defeat it. It copied our moves, our power, even our thoughts." Yarrick sat down on a crate, rubbing his face. "So what are we supposed to do? Think happy thoughts and hope it goes back to sleep?" Orlan walked past him, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "No, we survive by not fearing it, and by waking only those who can resist it." Just then, an alert flashed on the screen ships entering the system. Again, Yarrick rushed to the cockpit and pulled up the data. 3 ships, no IDs. They're closing fast. Nisa's eyes lit up. "Bounty hunters?" Sorali asked. "How did they find us so quickly?" Yarrick stared at the blinking light on his dashboard. The one tied to the container's internal systems. They're tracking the container's core. "We disabled the beacon, but not the internal ping." Orlan reached out, and with a flick of her hand, the signal vanished from the system. "Not anymore," she said calmly. Nisa smirked. "All right, she's useful, but the ships were still coming." And they were close enough now to scan Yarrick's vessel. Sorali grabbed Yarrick's arm. "We can't outrun them, not with this ship." Orlan turned to them all, her voice still soft but full of power. "Then let them come. Let's show them what happens when you wake a Valari." They came fast. 3 ships, black and sharp like blades, flew through space like they already knew what they were hunting. They didn't send messages, didn't warn, didn't ask questions. They just came with their weapons hot and targeting locked. Yarrick sat in the pilot's chair, knuckles white on the controls. They're closing in fast. "We've got less than 3 minutes. Nisa stood behind him, her arms crossed, but her eyes glowing with energy. "Let them come," she said coldly. "They think we're prey." Sorelli, always softer, placed a hand on Yarrick's shoulder. "Don't try to fight them alone. You can't. But with us, maybe we have a chance." Orlan said nothing. She simply stared at the stars, her silver eyes reflecting the light. She whispered something in her ancient language, and the walls of the ship began to hum. Yarrick looked around, confused. "What are you doing to my ship?" I'm helping it, Orlan said. This ship listens. It's old, but it remembers how to survive. The 3 enemy ships moved into position, surrounding the dust sparrow like wolves around a wounded deer. Then they opened fire. Red beams slashed across the darkness, shaking the dust sparrow. Sparks flew from the walls. Alarms screamed. Shields failing, Yarek shouted, "We can't take more hits like that." Nisa stepped forward, her hands glowing blue now. "Open the outer bay door." "What?" Yurak asked. "You'll be pulled into space." "I said open it," she growled. Yurak hit the emergency override. The outer bay door slid open with a hiss, and wind howled through the ship. Nisa stepped into the open space like it was nothing. Then she jumped. No suit, no jetpack, just raw power. Her body lit up with energy. And in the blackness of space, she flew like a comet. Straight toward one of the enemy ships. Sarali gasped. "She's using her full force." She burned out. But Nisa didn't stop. She crashed into the first enemy ship like a lightning strike. Her body punched through metal, her powers tearing through circuits and weapons. The ship lit up from the inside and then exploded. Orlan closed her eyes and space twisted. The shockwave from the explosion bent around their ship instead of hitting it, like space itself respected her command. Yarek stared in awe. "That's impossible." "One down," Sarali whispered, "but more will come." The second ship circled around, preparing to launch boarding hooks. They wanted to capture, not destroy, inside the dust sparrow. Sarali stepped forward now, her hands shaking. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small orbit, pulsed gently, like a heart. "What's that?" Yarek asked. "It's part of my soul," Sarali said softly. "I split it long ago, to protect others. Now, I'll use it to protect you." She pressed the orb to her chest, and her body began to glow with soft silver light. She moved her hands, and a field of energy formed around the ship. Not like a normal shield. This one was alive when the boarding hooks hit the shield. They melted on contact. The second ship tried again. This time, firing a gravity anchor surreal focused harder. And the beam bent away like water off glass. Then Nisa returned, her body burned, but still glowing. She hovered near the third ship, her hands forming a sphere of pure energy. "Let's end this," she whispered, and through the sphere, the third ship fired missiles. But the sphere swallowed them, twisted them, and shot them back. Boom. Another explosion lit the stars. Only one enemy ship remained, the one trying to board them. That's when Yarek saw something that made his blood run cold. The enemy wasn't alone. Inside their ship, he saw something slithering behind the crew. Something black, wet, and covered in eyes. It wasn't part of them. It was watching them, attached to the walls like mold, growing, spreading. "Orlan," he called. "There's something inside their ship." She looked at the screen, her face suddenly serious. It followed the signal. "It wants us awake." Yarek swallowed hard. "Is that the same thing?" "In the sealed chamber." "No," she said. "But it came from the same place. It's a piece of the larger nightmare." "A scout," Sarali cried out. "That means the prison is weakening faster than we thought." Orlan reached out her hand, eyes turning white. The stars outside shimmered, and the enemy ship stopped moving. Completely frozen in space, inside the enemy ship. The black thing screeched, then it pulled itself free of the walls and vanished into the shadows. The enemy crew panicked, abandoning. Ship Yarek closed the bay doors. The battle over for now, but his heart was heavy. They hadn't just woken sleeping beauties, they had woken a war. Silence returned to the ship. But it was not a peaceful silence. It was the kind that holds its breath. The dust sparrow floated. In space, smoke rising from the walls, the lights flickering softly. Nisa was resting in the medical bay, her body bruised from the fight. Sorali was sitting quietly near the pods, her silver hands glowing faintly as she tried to repair the internal systems. Yarrick stared at the screen in the cockpit. The enemy ships were gone. But the memory of what he saw still clung to him like frost. That dark shape inside the last ship. It had looked right back at him, and it had smiled. Aurelane stood alone at the back of the cargo bay, facing the sealed chamber. Her eyes were closed, her body still. But the air around her buzzed like static. Yarrick walked over slowly. "You've been standing here for hours. I'm listening," she said, without turning around. "To what?" "To what is coming," she whispered. "The thing behind this door is no longer fully asleep. It's starting to remember us." Yarrick swallowed hard. "Is it alive?" "No," she said. "But it moves, it thinks, it dreams in patterns." "Too big for minds like ours." Yarrick shook his head. "You speak in riddles." She finally turned to him, her face serious. "If I said its name, space itself might bend. It is older than war, older than stars, and it knows when someone is watching it." Just then, one of the sleeping pods started flickering. The lights around it shifted from soft blue to a strange golden white. Sorali stood up in shock. "That's not a normal wake signal." Aurelane rushed forward, placing her hand on the pod. "She's not waking. She's being called." Yarrick's eyes widened by the thing inside. Aurelane nodded slowly. "Yes, it's trying to control her, use her power to break the lock." Yarrick didn't wait. He slammed the emergency override, stopping the wake sequence. The pod lights returned to blue. The girl inside, still asleep, Aurelane, exhaled slowly. "You were fast." "That saved her." Sorelli looked worried. "If it can reach them even while they sleep, then it's growing stronger." Yarrick rubbed his forehead. "We need a plan. Running won't work forever. We need to understand what this thing really is and how to stop it." Sorelli hesitated, then pulled out a hidden piece of tech from her satchel. It looked like a small cube, glowing with swirling light inside. "This was given to me by our last guardian," she said softly. "She said it holds the truth, but must only be opened in desperate times." Nisa appeared behind them, leaning against the wall, her voice weak but steady. "I think this counts." Sorelli placed the cube on the floor. It began to unfold. A projection lit up above it stars, planets, then ruins, and symbols too old for translation. A voice echoed, slow and broken. "If you are seeing this, the sleeper has stirred." Yarrick listened carefully, every word making his skin crawl. "The sleeper was made, not born." The voice said, "A creation from the war of minds. Not weapons, it cannot be killed by force, only sealed by balance." "What does that mean?" Yarrick asked. Aurelane answered, "It was sealed because it feeds on chaos, fear, hate. If we give it war, it grows stronger." The voice continued, "Only through unity of will, harmony of power, and the awakening of the 12. Can the seal be restored?" Nisa scoffed. "So we have to wake everyone." "That's exactly what we were told not to do." Sorali looked up, but not all at once. "One by one, together, not in chaos, but with purpose." Yarrick nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time to wake the next one." Aurelane placed her hand on a nearby pod. "This one is Kirosa. She can read the energy of memory. If anyone knows more about the sleeper, it's her." They activated the pod carefully. The light inside warmed to golden yellow, and a tall girl with soft green skin slowly opened her eyes. Her hair floated like vines, and her breath was like wind through trees. She looked at them and whispered, "It still remembers me." Yarrick stepped forward. "Can you tell us more?" Kirosa looked around slowly, her voice echoing like a distant dream. "It speaks in silence, it hides in thoughts, but I know where its first root sleeps." "Where?" Sorelli asked quickly. "In the stars of the Forgotten Ring," Kirosa said. "That's where the lock began. That's where it can be rebuilt." Yarrick frowned. Forgotten ring. That's not on any map I've seen. Orlan turned to him. That's because only the Valari remember it. It was erased from the charts after the war. Akasa cracked her knuckles. Then I say we go there. Before the sleeper wakes for real. Yarrick looked at the glowing pods at the girls standing before him. Each one a mystery, each one a power. He didn't know what this journey would lead to. But one thing was clear. The universe had changed the moment he spent that single credit. The dust sparrow flew toward the edge of the known galaxy, past blinking stars and broken signals. Guided only by memory, Kurosa stood near the front window, her green hair floating like soft grass. Her eyes were closed, but she was seeing more than anyone else. The forgotten ring is close, she whispered. I can feel the echo of the seal. Yarrick stood behind her, feeling nervous. What happens when we get there? Orlan answered without emotion. We wake the rest. We rebuild the lock. Or we die. Behind them, 10 sleeping pods were active now. 4 of them still unopened. Yarrick had memorized each face, each one strange, beautiful and powerful in their own way. He had spent 1 credit, and now he was holding the fate of the galaxy inside his small ship. As they reached the ancient system, the ship slowed, the stars around them were dim. The planets nearby looked ruined, as if something had drained their life long ago. In the center was a broken space station shaped like a massive ring. Covered in black scars and twisted metal, Sorali spoke first. That's it. That's where the Valari sealed the sleeper the first time. The ship hovered closer, and suddenly, Yarrick felt something cold. Not on his skin, but inside his mind. A voice, soft and full of hunger, whispered, You brought them here. Good, Yarrick gasped, stepping back. It's in my head. Orlan touched his arm. It's reaching now, the closer we are. The stronger its voice becomes. Stay focused. One of the sleeping pods began to rattle. Red lights flashing wildly, the seals almost gone. Nisa shouted, If we don't wake them now, it'll wake them instead. Yarrick nodded. Do it. They opened the remaining pods. One by one, each Valari rose, confused at first, then calm as their minds connected with the others. 12 now stood in the cargo bay, glowing. Like stars, each different, yet part of the same great power. Then the sealed chamber began to breathe, not loudly, but slowly, like something exhaling after a long sleep. The walls cracked, not with sound, but with pressure. Space itself bending near the door. The door hissed. The locks melted like butter. And the chamber opened. What came out wasn't a monster in shape. It was a cloud, dark and massive, filled with eyes that blinked in all directions. Arms of shadow slid across the floor, pulling in the light. It didn't roar. It didn't scream. It simply looked, and when it looked at Yarrick, he felt like he was made of glass. You are small. The thing whispered, not with sound, but in every mind at once. And you brought me food. Nisa stepped forward, her arms charged with energy. We're not afraid of you. You will be, the thing replied. You always are. The Valari joined hands, forming a circle. Their bodies glowed brighter than ever before. Light pulsed through the room, pushing back the dark. But the creature laughed. You cannot kill what is not alive. We don't need to kill you, Orlan said softly. We just need to remember how to lock you away. Yarrick stepped inside the circle, holding nothing but a small piece of old tech. Same cube Sorale had once opened. He placed it on the floor and it unfolded again, but this time it reacted to the 12 Valari. The station outside began to glow, its ruined parts awakening. Ancient systems lighting up after centuries of silence. The station connected to their minds, and together, they began rebuilding the seal. The shadow creature screamed now, not in fear but in anger. It lashed out, its limbs crashing into the ship, breaking walls, shaking the floor. But the Volari held firm. Yarok stood with them. Not because he had power, but because he had chosen to stay. The ship's AI, silent for years. Activated for the first time, sealing protocol engaged. It said, ancient pattern detected beams of light shot out from the ring station, forming a cage of energy. The creature tried to escape, but it was too late. The Volari sang not with voices, but with thoughts, memories, pain, and hope. Their unity pulled the darkness back, folding it into the seal like a forgotten nightmare. Then silence. Real silence. The chamber was empty, the shadow gone. Orlin fell to her knees, tired, but alive. It's done. Yarok sat on the floor, breathing hard. Is it gone for good? No, Sorali said. But it's sleeping again, for another age. The 12 Volari stood tall, their powers dimming. But their bond stronger than ever. Nisa looked at Yarok and asked, "What will you do now?" He smiled faintly. Probably find a quieter job. Maybe one that doesn't involve waking ancient evils. Kurosa laughed softly. You could travel with us. Help us find the rest of our history. Yarok looked at the stars, then at the girls. Maybe I will. After all, I did pay for you, and in the cold dark of space. For the first time in a long time, someone laughed.